Okay, welcome to the third video in the series. Remember, I kept mentioning in our previous videos that the div HTML element behaves like a box. That actually applies to every HTML element. They all behave like a box, and it's called a CSS Box Model. In this box, you have a space where the content, the things that you are typing, your text message, your image, are placed within. And that's what we call the content area. Then you have a space called padding, which is a space that is left, just like the margin you have in Microsoft Word. When you print out a paper, the text on the paper is not printed all over the paper. There are some margins at the edges. That's similar to your padding. And you also have a border. The border is just like the thickness of this edge where I have my cursor. That's what you call the border. And you have a margin, which is the space between your element and the closest element to it. So I'm going to be demonstrating this using our HTML page here to demonstrate to you what a margin is, what a padding is, what the border is. So we're going to have our div element again. I'm going to give it an identifier and call it a box. Right. So I'm going to style my box. First, I'll give it a width. Let me use 200 pixels this time around. Give it a height of 200 pixels as well. I'll give it a border of 1 pixel solid. Solid means a solid line. If I type in dashed, you'll see that the lines around it will be dashed. Like this, so but let's use solid. Okay. So far, everything I type into this box you can see that everything I type into this box hugs to the edges of the box. That's because this box has no padding. So I'm going to give it a background color so that we can see the content. Okay. So, but you know that most times when you read on a web page, the content is not hugging tightly to the edges of the web page. There's usually a space. That space is called padding. So I'm going to introduce padding here. Again, you can have, if I say give me a padding of 10 pixels, you have it like so. Now you can see it has 10 pixels on the left, 10 pixels at the top, 10 pixels on the right, and also 10 pixels at the bottom. That's the margin it is given. But I can define where I want the padding. I can say I want to have my padding only at the top. So let me take this out. And that's called padding on the top. I can decide that I want the padding to be only on the right hand side. And you will see that I have a padding on my right hand side. Note that the width of the box, this width and height references the width of the content area. So each time I add a padding, I actually make the box bigger. but this space will not contain any element. Let me add some more text. You can see that nothing is added here. No matter how much text you had, the box just becomes, it just fills up the box. Okay, so I'm going to change this to 10 pixel. I can also add padding to the bottom. 10 pixels as well. You will have that padding in the bottom. You see the bottom has become bigger. So padding adds to the size of your overall element, but that area will not contain any text or any content. So I'm just going to put padding everywhere by not defining. If I don't define anything, it's going to add the padding everywhere, top, bottom, right, left. Okay, next we have margin. So I'm going to create another box. This time around, I make this my box 2. Since I'm giving them, okay, let me make it a different. And I'm giving this a pink color, right? Okay, you can see that these boxes, they hug each other, following closely each other. Their lines are touching. So that's what margin is used for. Margin is used to create a distance between an element and its closest element. So I'm going to put a margin of 10 pixels. Can we see that this box now has a space of 10 pixels between the next element, and even has a 10 pixels between the body of the document? So it's going to have 10 pixels away from the body and away from the nearest element. In other words, it just creates a 10 pixels margin around itself. Similarly to padding, I can define where I want the margin to be. For example, if I wanted the margin only at the bottom, I'll have margin at the bottom. And then the margins at the sides will not be there. I can increase the margin to 30 pixels. And then that space becomes bigger. So I hope we get the concept of padding, margin, and the border. I can also increase the thickness of the border. Maybe I want my border to look this thick. That's what border does. Maybe you want it to look like a picture. And you can as well give a border color as well. Border color, okay, brown. Like so. So I hope you understand the concept of padding and margin. We're going to be using them to create spacing in between our elements, help with positioning, and there are many things you can do with it as you go on in the course. But essentially, they are very useful when you are positioning your content, positioning your elements on your web page. So see you in the next class.